Tonight on FiOS 1 News, a community mourning an FDNY firefighter from Long Island. He was killed on a movie set in Harlem.
And preparations underway for March for Our Lives rallies all across the nation. How students are getting ready for the protests.
Plus, the Long Island man pleads guilty to an online scheme to get sexually explicit images from women.
And President Trump signs a massive spending bill just hours after considering a veto. Why it came up short for funding on DACA and the border wall.
FiOS 1 News Now.
And good evening. Welcome to FiOS 1 News Now. I'm Brian Webb in for Mike Gilliam.
And I'm Courtney Kane. Thank you for joining us. We'll get to all the day's top stories in just a moment. First, though, check out that Friday forecast.
Felt good to me today.
Yeah,
I don't know about
right?
you. Here's meteorologist Joe Rayo with the details. Hi, Joe.
Okay, thank you, Brian, and thank you, Courtney. Well, the tail end, or the trailing end of the nor'easter that passed us by on Tuesday night, Wednesday, is now moving away and through our area, actually. And this upper-level disturbance, this trough of low pressure, is producing some cloudiness and also a few widely scattered showers, maybe in one or two spots, even some wet snowflakes mixing in. No big deal. Temperatures today were in the 40s across much of our area, so it will become clear later on this evening. A cold night coming up tonight. Saturday sun will give way to clouds. Maybe slight risk of a flurry. Otherwise, basically a dry but chilly Palm Sunday, and then sun-filled skies to kick off your week on Monday. More weather details coming up a bit later.
All right, Joe, thank you. Tonight, we begin with the line of duty death of a New York City firefighter from Long Island. Firefighter Michael Davidson died battling a fire on a movie set in Harlem.
This afternoon, a solemn procession led by Engine Company 60, that's where Davidson served, brought his body to his home in Floral Park. Davidson, who is the son of a retired firefighter, leaves behind his wife Eileen and 4 children, all under the age of 8.
FiOS 1's Brittany Comack live for us tonight in Floral Park, where friends and family are remembering him as a hero. Brittany.
Good evening, Brian and Courtney. The mood here is just extremely solemn as people have been coming in and out all day to offer their condolences over the death of FDNY firefighter Michael Davidson, who was killed last night fighting a fire in Harlem. We spoke with a neighbor earlier who wasn't comfortable going on camera, who told us he was a retired FDNY firefighter and that though he never worked with Davidson, his co-workers told him that Davidson was an extremely kind and generous man to work with and that he was also a wonderful neighbor. People here in Floral Park have been overwhelmed with emotion speaking about their neighbor, FDNY firefighter Michael Davidson, who died in a fire in Harlem last night on the set of a movie.
It's horrible. It's horrible.
Very upsetting. It's very upsetting. He was a great guy. He's sorely missed.
According to the FDNY, Davidson was fighting the 5-alarm fire on the set of Motherless Brooklyn, a film starring Ed Norton, Bruce Willis, and Alec Baldwin, when he was separated from the other firefighters. Davidson was later found unconscious.
He was great, you know, had a wife, he had small children, and I was shocked this morning.
Family and friends have been coming to Davidson's home to offer their condolences all day. The 15-year veteran was cited for bravery 4 times by the FDNY and reportedly comes from a family of firefighters.
Our entire department, our entire city mourns this horrific loss of a very brave firefighter.
Actor Ed Norton, who is also the movie director, was in Harlem last night. The movie's producers offered their condolences in a statement saying, quote, "To our great sorrow, we know that a New York City firefighter lost his life battling the blaze that grew, and our hearts ache in solidarity with his family." Davidson sadly leaves behind a wife and 4 young children. One neighbor told us she found out about Davidson's death in church.
Everybody gasped, really. Yeah, just gasped. But then, I'm sorry, by then I didn't realize he was my neighbor.
We reached out to the Our Lady of Victory Parish later on, where Healy says Davidson was a parishioner, but they declined to comment. Tonight, he is being remembered as a loving father and wonderful neighbor.
As a neighbor, he was a good guy, you know. I have nothing ever bad to say about him, you know. Every time I seen him, he was friendly, he was happy.
And we did reach out to the FDNY for more information on this deadly fire. They told us that the fire marshal is still investigating, but that it may have started in the in the basement of the 5-story building. In Floral Park, Brittany Comack, FiOS 1 News.
All right, thank you, Brittany. And remember to stay with FiOS 1 News for continuing coverage as we remember FDNY firefighter Michael Davidson.
The Suffolk County District Attorney sends out a strong warning following an arrest for what's being called horrifying criminal sex acts in an online chat room. FiOS 1's Chris McNally with that story.
They are forced to do degrading acts, including acting as virtual sex slaves, and in one circumstance, forced to sodomize herself with a screwdriver.
Those are just some of the horrifying acts that 21-year-old Joseph Iorio pleaded guilty to in a sextortion scheme. Iorio would victimize women online in a chat room. They became victims after men would send photos of various young women in the nude that were meant to be private. They would post those photos and identify the women in them. Joseph Iorio would then find the women and threaten to leak their photos publicly or to family members if they did not send additional videos or images of themselves within a certain amount of time. Iorio victimized over 30 women and would even force them to comply with his requests in public places within 30 seconds.
Some women have been forced to appear in public in the nude, perform sex acts upon themselves that have resulted in injury, and much worse.
Now, the Suffolk County District Attorney, Tim Sini, is rolling out an initiative to end this type of behavior in Suffolk County. The multi-pronged approach will be aggressively prosecuting, educating parents and young people about the dangers of taking explicit photos or videos, legislative reform, and supporting victims. He says it is very easy to have private photos leaked to the public.
Anyone who engages in this type of behavior runs the risk of being a victim.
City also said that what Joseph Iorio was doing to women is modern-day sex torture, and it will not be tolerated.
We will find out, we will arrest you, and we will prosecute you to the fullest extent of the law.
Joseph Iorio will serve a minimum of 5 years in state prison. Reporting in Hop Hog, Krista McNally, FiOS 1 News.
A big day tomorrow in our nation's capital. Thousands of students and parents marching on Washington, D.C. in the March for Our Lives.
And there are marches all over the country. FiOS 1's Emily Druby with a preview of tomorrow's event in Newark.
Aaron Chung, Lisa O'Donoghue, and Larissa Menendez-Downs spent the afternoon preparing for Saturday's March for Our Lives event being held in Newark.
We've got student speakers, student performers. Governor Murphy is joining us. It's going to be a really powerful day.
The three women, part of Moms Demand Action and Women for Progress, two of the three organizations listed as supporting the march. Chung and Menendez-Downs says they got involved with their respective groups after the Sandy Hook shooting, but Menendez-Downs also has a very personal connection to the Parkland, Florida shooting.
I went to high school there. I was a 1996 graduate of Marjory Stoneman Douglas and saw a parking lot where I'd spent countless hours rehearsing for band programs. Be on news, and it was right there. I was watching kids, 14, 15, being evacuated.
All three women hope Saturday's marches will help to continue to highlight gun violence prevention.
I'm hoping that what it does is keep driving the conversation forward.
I think what we would like to do is make sure that people, yes, get together, coalesce around this school shooting issue, but we want them to understand that this is just a small part of the gun violence problem that we have in America.
Chung also says she hopes the event inspires and educates young people, especially those high schoolers who will soon be able to vote. They are expecting between 3,000 and 5,000 people to attend the event, including Governor Phil Murphy and activist Amina Baraka.
The event will be held on Saturday at 10 a.m. at Military Park in Newark. There'll be a quick program, then they'll do the march and end back at Military Park for the second half of the program. In Wyckoff, Emily Druby, FiOS 1 News.
Emily, thank you. Earlier today, a group of 18 high school students from Long Island, Brooklyn, and Queens boarded a bus at Mercer School of Theology in Garden City. They are heading to Washington, D.C. tomorrow for the march. The Diocese of Long Island put this together.
I'm excited to think that this movement by young people just is this historical reach again, like they're reaching back and thinking about how young people have changed our country.
We're in 2018, this shouldn't be happening, and we still have a far way to go.
And the students tell us their friends and family support them taking part in the march.
Well, some students at Scholastic Academy in Yonkers will also be participating in that march.
What's out there? Hungry black holes, spinning quasars, and a universe.